Shalom Israel. Always want to say it. This is the title for my talk. It's got nothing to do with the original title that you just saw on the agenda. I think it was like advanced messaging, advanced, something advanced with NGRX advanced, because it sounds good. But then I thought about it, what is advanced? I mean, just because something maybe is complicated or you're not really understand how it works, it doesn't make it advanced. So I decided to do something else and just give you some, maybe show you some tools or some modules that I work with when I work with NGRX, some tips, one or two techniques, I think some, let's call it some, it's not actually patterns, but some best practices that sometimes we just, haven't noticed. So this is me, new picture. I work at 500 Tech. We help companies to build frontends, so that's what we do. I've got a lot of experience with Redux, with NGRX since the new Angular came out. I'm also a volunteer at APD. Right? Most of you already know me. Who's working with PHP? No one, huh? Anyway, if you're PHP positive or you know someone who works with PHP, please call this free number. No, don't laugh. Anyway, the format of this talk is going to be something I never tried before. I'm always saying you can ask me anything because I really love to answer questions, to share my experience, to learn from others. So I've collected a bunch of questions, real questions that people asked me. So it's going to be like a real question that someone sent me, and then I'm going to answer. All right? So, and a lot of useful tips, hopefully. Ready? Yeah. Oh, woo. Oh. All right. Oh, no. All right. So this talk is based on real questions. Let's get started. First one, all right? Who's working with NGRX? No. Yes, Angular conference. How can I reduce NGRX boilerplate code? All right? Because we all know that there is a price for all the good things in this pattern, in Redux in general and NGRX, which is boilerplate code. So let's define boilerplate code. It's code that we have to include in many places. A lot of code to do minimal jobs. That's not a secret. And that's fine. I mean, I don't have any problem with writing boilerplate code if I get some benefits out of it. But I don't want to do it by myself. I think most of us familiar with this kind of diagrams. Yeah? The classic NGRX. Let's enjoy the amazing animations. So, the important component of Redux in general, and NGRX is nothing different, is the middleware or the effects part of NGRX, because the rest of the pattern is just boilerplate code. We've got action creators, we've got simple reducers, hopefully simple reducers, we've got the actions themselves, it's got a lot of typing, but most of our work is focused on the effects parts, where the actual app is living. Make sense? Yeah, all right? Good. So, if most of the part of NGRX is kind of boilerplate code, a lot of code that we have to include, we can automate this. How many of you work with NGRX schematics? Nice. So most of you are not familiar with this. So let's try to do some kind of a live demo. All right. What I've got here is just an simple, plain, empty Angular project generated with Angular CLI. So I've got my app component, I've got my app module, and I want to start working with NGRX. And like I said before, it's going to be a lot of boilerplate code and a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes because you forgot to register something, you forgot to put this in there. All right? So Part of NGRX is a library called, a module called NGRX schematics. NGRX is a set of modules, it's a suite of modules, it's not just the store. Which means that if you want to start a new project, just like Angular CLI, we can write something like this. ng-generate state with the flag root and put it on the app module. If I'll take this line and just run it, what we get is NGRX up and running. We've got our store module configured, we've got our reducers index in place, we've got our dev tools with environment, all right? There's a small fix that need to be fixed, is this part. It's not the right path. Wait a second. Yep, all right? So, most of you are not familiar with this. I mean, you didn't raise your hand. This is a great tool. Right now, we've got my app modules up and running. I've got my reducers index with everything in place. So all you need to do is just fill the spaces. So you've got your state interface, you've got your reducers map, you've got a placeholder for reducer enhancers right in place. Cool? Yeah? Saves you a lot of time. Just setup, just wiring. You don't have to write it yourself. All right. Let's take it a step forward. NGRX support the idea of modules like Angular. That's the reason it works together so well. It was written for Angular. So the concept of feature modules, of creating separated modules that is kind of a standalone mini apps that we can compose together, we can isolate for testing. Let's try to generate. This command is Angular CLI, all right? The ng-generate module, user. Let's pair some files. So I just created a module, an Angular module, my user module, and I want to set up NGRX feature for this module. How many of you familiar with the concept of NGRX feature modules? Just to know? All right. Just like the root, you can type this one. ng-generate feature under user and register it on the user module. So if I paste this one, I've got the entire structure right in place. The difference is that this is a feature, a part of the state. Right now, I can just include the module. Let's take this user module, put it inside the app module, like this. Go back to the server. Let's try to see if I can see something in the Redux. Yep, I've got a user. So everything just wired up for me. And if we explore this feature module, you saw I didn't have to wire this feature module to the app module. I didn't have to do nothing. One of the best things in Angular is the Angular CLI, so we can expect the same experience with NGRX schematics. If we explore this, you can find all the placeholder, all the boilerplate you need for actions. So again, just fill your own actions right here, and all the best practices right in place. So I've got my action types as an enum, I've got my action creators, I've got my union type, I've got a reducer with all the necessary parts. So the interface for this part of the state, right here, the initial state, the reducer with the default action that returned the state, Redux, NGRX. But everything was generated for me. Spec file and effects. Already inject the action observable and we're ready to go. All right? Cool. But we didn't create any any components yet. So my next step will be ng-generate container. How many of you familiar with the concept? I mean, most of us, I think, are already familiar with the concept of container components and just reusable components. So in feature modules and NGRX support this, I can create a container, ng-generate container, put it inside the user directory, call it user page, and right now we've got users page with my component in place, in the store already injected. All you've got to do is just use your selectors. So this is NGRX schematics. If you don't use schematics, you're just writing a lot of code, which makes NGRX like less fun experience. This is a picture of a family who just started to use schematics. A real picture, authentic. You can see they're really happy. All right, next question. I don't have too much time. Hey Nir, what is your secret for healthy hair? All right, so it's coconut oil. I've got a booth outside. If you want to see a live demo of me putting coconut oil on my hair, you're, yeah. Hey Nir, how do you deal with a deep nested state object? And the answer is you don't. I think most of us already know that keeping a very nested object as our state is a bad idea. It's make our reducers very complicated. But on the introduction, I just said that I consider the reducers and the action something that we can actually generate automatically because our logic sits on effects, on middlewares. So let's see if NGRX got any solution for this one. A part of NGRX suite is a module called entities, which implement for us a standard structure to create a set of very reusable common actions to perform CRUD operation. Most of the time when you deal with collections, you need to add, to remove, to update, whatever, all right? We're all familiar with this. And because it's a kind of a boilerplate code, I mean code you have to include, not actually contain your business logic, we can generate it automatically. So let's give it a try. Try to do something very bold. No, that's not the right project. A second. Yep. I just want to switch branch and I don't want to mess with this code because I've got it on GitHub ready for you. All right. So I'm going to switch to entity start. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to create another module. This is Angular CLI again. I'm going to call this module books. It's going to manage a collection of books because I'm building some kind of a library app. So let's generate a module. So I've got a new module, book. Now I'm going to create an entity named book. ng-generate entity under the books, call it book. Let's explore the code. What you got out of the box is this. First, you've got an interface for your book. The ID is already there. You have to have some kind of an ID. Just add your own properties. Next, we've got our action creators already set up for us. So basically, it's, I think, 99% of what we usually do, all right? So we've got load books and add books and upsert books and books, whatever, all right? Clear, delete. All the action creators are right in place because this is not the interesting part of the Redux pattern. We can generate it automatically. So I've got all the actions I need, and I've got the reducer already implemented for all of those actions with utility methods I don't need to think about, I don't need to think about immutability and how do I keep the structure flat enough. So we've got everything out of the box. The reducer is completely implemented. And this is the fun part. Straight from this entity adapter, you've got default selectors that you can extract. So I can read this collection out of the box. So if you don't use schematics, use schematics. If you're not familiar with NGRX entity, use NGRX entity, and you will get a better experience. So it's not actually a pattern, but I think it's a great tip, and you should use it. All right? I want to show you. I'm going to skip a branch. Untracked file. So what? Quiet. You are amazed of NGRX schematics. All right. I want to switch branch, and let's do something like this. On my book page, I just created a simple form. So now I can add book because I want to show you how schematics works, and then we move forward to the next subject, of course. Failed to compile. Meantime, real question. It's based on real questions. So people ask me, Nir, as an Angular developer, how can I recognize the Vue.js developer? So I can be, So I made a cheat sheet for you. This is a Vue.js developer. Most of the time, he probably lives in Tel Aviv. All right. He's got a beard. It's very important. He listens to indie music while he's coding. All right. He's using Atom because, and he keeps using the word progressive. I'm using a progressive framework for build progressive code. So, if you, all right, you got the idea. Yeah. All right. Let's see if we got it compiled. If not, that's what's happened when you try to live code. But that's life. And just try to skip to the final branch. If it's going to work, it's going to work. If not, not a problem. Yep, compiled successfully. Is it going to, yeah, all right. So the entity is not just generate action for us. The most important things that happen, that it's actually create a very nice data structure, very efficient data structure on our state. So right here, you can see how the books looks like. I've got IDs and entities. Maybe we switch to this view, the state. All right, I've got an array of IDs. I've got the entities. And each time that I'm adding a book, I'm just managing a map. And again, everything is automatically. Let's move forward. All right. Real questions. What is the source of truth when we're working with Redux? NGRX is no different than Redux. How many of you think that our store is the source of truth? Tricky question. Don't be shy. The state is the source of truth. It's a one object that contains everything, all right? But actually, the state in Redux cannot be considered as the source of truth. The real source of truth are the actions themselves, the event that happened. For example, think of your bank account. All right, your bank account, your balance. Your balance is the sum of all the transactions that happen. In other words, if you've got a problem, if you see that your balance is not right, where do you go to look for the problem? You open up the log, and you see all the events that happened. And this is our source of truth. In other words, you need to remember, try to implement this idea. The state itself is just a cache. It's something that it can be deleted, and we can regenerate it if we run the action. So the actions are the source of truth. The events that happen are the source of truth. All right? Make sense in a way? All right. One common problem is, I don't think it's a problem, but something that I see a lot, that people forget about. I mean, everything is NGRX, everything is actions, but we don't consider routing as a change of state. So we've got everything right in place, but we're still using just a standard routing, and we change pages, and we just broke the pattern. Sounds familiar? I mean, because if not, we can. Everyone here like manage their routes with actions? No. All right. Thank you. Thank you for being honest. So the next thing that I want to show you, which I think is a very good practice, is very easy to implement. And because my actions are my source of truth, and because I want to be able to track, and because I want to be able, in my Redux dev tool, to do a time travel debugging, to cancel routing, and to see actually the navigation actually changed, I'm implementing routing with actions. And you've got two benefits out of this. First, everything is an action. You've got your source of truth. You've got a better debugging experience. Second, you've got a single point in your app when you actually perform the routing. So every time I want to change pages, I'm not just using A tags, I'm dispatching an action. Go to this page or go back. The actual routing I'm implementing in an effect class, in a middleware. A single point in my app where the routing is actually happening. So again, the benefit of this pattern is routing. You can see it in your action log. You can debug it. You can reason about it. You can do time travel debugging. You don't break this idea of source of truth. You don't break this pattern of Redux NGRX. And you've got a very nice, clean code and a single point in your system where you actually perform the routing, which is great. I think so. If you've got questions, we'll have plenty of time for questions. All right? Don't worry. All right? Next. Yeah, you're so quiet. Because it's so interesting. Next questions. Hey, Nir, VS Code is free and popular. Don't you want to try it? Real question. And my answer is no. Actually, sometimes I do try to use it, but then I've got regrets because, all right? So I've got a trick. Every time I open up VS Code, I've got this one, all right? As a reminder that you can try it, but you're entering to a world of pain. Big Lebowski, yeah? WebStorm, JetBrains, yeah. Of course, what else? Like Carlsberg, no? All right, cool. Let's move forward. Another, I think, this is the last pattern. Let's not call it a pattern because it's actually a technique, all right? Kind of technique. A lot of people who use NGRX feels like they are not really using Angular features. I mean, NGRX doing a lot of stuff. We've got great features, for instance, with the router. We've got router guards. We've got router data resolvers, things that we used to do with AngularJS. I want to resolve some data before I'm entering the page. I want to use guards to protect certain routes. How do I do it right with NGRX? Make sense? All right. Because in NGRX and in Redux in general, we separate writing to the state from reading, from the subscribing, we can subscribe to the store from everywhere. And sometimes we believe that store select is relevant only on components. But actually, because our state is read-only, you can And you should, because it's opened up a lot of opportunities for you to subscribe from different parts of Angular. For instance, subscribes in modules, if you like. Subscribes in guards. You can read the state as much as you want. But let's see how it can work for us. So I want to show you the following pattern that I use. This is another demo project. Everything is on GitHub if you want to play with demos. I've got here 3 modules: the authentication, core, movies. This is the conventions I use, which is standard NGRX conventions. So I've got my effects, my models, containers, components, actions, everything, and I've got services, because you can put your logic in Angular services. Just because you're using NGRX doesn't mean that everything needs to be in effects and actions and reducers, all right? And inside the services, I created a guard, a route guard, can activate. And I'm reading the store. I don't care about actions. I'm reading the store. I'm subscribing to the store. And I'm checking if on the store I've got something that I'm interested in, like this flag that say if the user logged in or not. And if it's not, I'm just dispatching an action, login redirect. So subscribe inside guards, and then you can actually leverage this feature of Angular Router without feeling like you're patching around NGRX. I know you've got a lot of questions, all right? It's safe? Nothing safe, that's the client, but that's user experience. It's not like protecting your routes because security, all right? But it's a good user experience. Anyway, the point is, this is how you use guards. So now I can come here and just use the authentication guard. It can be other guards as well, like you can sample the state and see if you've got a piece of data that you need, that it's crucial for this specific route. All right? Cool. Another feature that, and this is the last one, that I think is very important for me. I used to do it a lot with UI router in AngularJS. It's data resolving. Sometimes you want to resolve some data. So if I go back to the slides, to this slide, does this diagram looks familiar to someone? I'll give you a hint, Firebase. I mean, if you look at this, it looks like, for me, I saw a lot of Firebase slides that teach you that the real-time database in Firebase works the same way, by concept. I mean, you've got your database and you've got a lot of subscribers, all right? So in NGRX, if you think about programming with actions, programming with events as API requests to the server, you can do really nice stuff. And let me show you what I mean. Before NGRX, before the new Angular, before everything, we had AngularJS, we had a UI router, and sometimes when I navigate from route A, from state A to state B, from route A to route B, I want to go to the server, fetch some data. When the data is ready, I want to move forward. All right? Let me go back to this project. So I create here a data resolver for the Angular router. And let's walk through the code. I'm implementing the resolve because I need to implement the resolve method. I need to return an observable. And the code is straightforward. Right here, let's see this. All right, right here, I'm subscribed to the store, and I'm checking for some data. And if I don't have this data, I want to go and get it. So I want to dispatch some kind of an action. And it can be an API request action. Right here, we've got something hard-coded. But think of it like doing an HTTP request. Because it's Redux, I'm dispatching an action. But the trick is that we don't work with promises. We're working with event-based app. So I'm dispatching an action. How can I know that the data is ready? So the next method, this wait for books to load, I'm subscribing to the store. And when this data is present, that's fine with me. So it's like a request, implementing it then, like we use in promises, and when the result is ready, I can do something, but with actions. So those two simple methods now act as a data resolver. Here, and actually, it's a great button to take it to implement some kind of a cache as well. You can check if you've got something on the store and do something with it. But the important part here is how do I dispatch an action and how do I wait for an answer. You take this, you put it on your routes as a data resolver, so resolve books, and when books is ready, we can do this in the book page. You can inject the route snapshot, and you know that the data is resolved and is already there. Right? Cool. Yeah, all the animation. Again, let's summarize. I took a lot of those ideas and I wrote a book, and I've got a great QR for you. And if you want this book for free, you have to come and meet me at the coconut oil booth outside. If you don't, you need to pay for it. But if you like some of the stuff that you just saw, consider, check it out. You can check out my other books as well. Those are free for the public. And we've got lunch, and my time is up, so thank you very much for your time, and see you later.